Most websites look static, but with a simple effect like this, you can turn them into something that actually feels alive. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build this cinematic parallax effect using just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, step by step, so you can apply it to your own projects and make your websites stand out instantly. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And now, let's get into the code. The first thing you need to do is to download the assets folder in the GitHub repository of this project. After you do that, we are going to create our index.html and our index.css. So let's move the assets folder into our project. Alright, with our assets folder here, we have 4 images for the scenarios and our favicon as well. Now we can create our index.html file and our index.css. To start our HTML, we can write this exclamation sign and press enter, and VS Code is going to automatically create our mock code here. Now we can define a title, in this case is Serenity Parallax, and we can also import our favicon here, which the path is assets favicon ICO. Inside our body, we can define our main class here, which is Parallax container. Inside our main container, we have a section called Parallax section and also hero section. For this section, we have a parallax overlay and a parallax content. Inside our parallax content, we have a hero title here, so h1 hero title with a text discover serenity and also a paragraph hero subtitle. All these texts will be in our GitHub repository, so if you want to copy it and paste it here, you can if you go into our GitHub. And after the hero subtitle, we have a div scroll indicator with a span scroll text, and inside of it we can write scroll to explore. After that, we also have a div scroll arrow. This was our first section, so we can now build our second one. Section content section, and inside of the section we have a div content wrapper with a span section label. This is our about section, and h2 with the class section title, and in here we have finding peace in nature. After the section title, we also have a section text, so p.section text, and we can add another one, so we will have 2 paragraphs here, and I'm gonna just copy and paste the values, the first one, the second one, and this was our about section. So now let's go to the next one. This will be our parallax section and also forest section. In here, we will have a parallax overlay as well. And after the overlay, we also have a parallax content with a span parallax label written on it, the forest, and also a title with the class parallax title. In this case, it will be where silence speaks. And this was our forest section. By the way, let me fix this. Okay, now it's correct. Our next content section is going to have a content wrapper with a span section label features and another section title, which in this case is h2 with a value what we offer. After this title, we have a features grid with 3 articles inside. These articles have the class feature card, so we can multiply this by 3. I'm gonna give a space here, and for each card we have a feature icon with a text inside of it like 1 and 2 and 3, a feature title, which in this case is h3. The first title is mindful design, the second title is natural harmony, and the third one is elegant simplicity. To finish these cards, we have to add a feature text, which is a paragraph. I'm going to copy and paste their values, the first one, the second one, and the third one. Now we are done with these cards. After we are done with this content section, we can wrap it and go to the next one. But before we go into the next one, I realized I wrote a div here, but we actually want section, so our HTML will be more semantic. Now we are going to build our ocean section, so parallax section dot ocean section. For this one, we also have a parallax overlay with a parallax content, and inside this content we have a span parallax label with the value the ocean, and And after this, we have a title called Parallax title. And after that, we have a h2 with the class Parallax title, and the value is infinite horizons. After this section, we have another content section with a content wrapper. Inside this content wrapper, we have a section label called gallery. We can also add a title here with the class section title. This will be captured moments with a paragraph with the classes section text and centered. I'm just going to copy and paste this paragraph. Here we go. And after this paragraph, we can build our div called gallery grid. And this grid will have 4 items. So we can have here a gallery item multiplied by 4. And each one will have a gallery item class. The first one is gallery item 1, the second, the third, and the fourth. Now we have finished the gallery, so we can just build our last section here, which will be a section, parallax section, with a class desert section. And inside of it, we have a parallax overlay and also a parallax content. Inside this, we have a span parallax label with the value the desert, and the title parallax title with the value endless calm. So this was our last parallax section, and to finish our HTML, we can just build our footer here with the class footer. Inside of it, we have a div footer content, and for our footer content, we have a footer text, which is a paragraph with a text crafted with care and intention. And the second paragraph is a footer copyright, and the value is 2026 Serenity, all rights reserved. Well done. So this was our HTML, and now we can go write our CSS. So the first step for our CSS, we have to import our CSS. So link CSS, and then we just have to fix the path here, ./index.css. And now we just need to style our elements. We are going to initialize our index CSS with some variables here, so we can reuse our colors throughout the entire file. To declare our CSS variables, we have to write root, and inside of this root, we can write a parallax text with the value f5, f5, f0, and we will also have a parallax dark, a parallax cream, a parallax stone, and a parallax sage. So these are our colors. And before we continue with this tutorial, I'm going to split the screen so you can see the live result of our code. To run this project, we can use the extension live server, which is the one that I'm using in this video. So I can just click on go live, and now we can start styling our elements. First, we are going to use the global selector to remove all the margin and padding from the elements, and then we are going to define the box sizing as border box. After this global selector, we have a HTML scroll behavior smooth. When we are scrolling, the box should smoothly animate its scroll position rather than performing an instant jump when a scroll is triggered by our navigation. Now we can style our body. It will have a background var parallax cream with the color parallax dark, and the font family settings will be Georgia, Times New Roman, and serif. So this is a fallback. If the Georgia font is not available, it will try to use the Times New Roman, and finally the serif if the other ones are not available. We can already see here the result of our font setting. Now we can define our parallax container with a overflow X hidden, so we guarantee that our sections won't overflow. In this case, the horizontal scroll bar won't appear here. Then we can style our parallax sections with a position relative, a mean height of 100 VH, a display flex, align item center, justify content center, background attachment fixed, a background position center, a background repeat no repeat, and a background size cover so the image will fit properly in the screen. Before we continue, you should know that this background attachment fixed is the property responsible for our parallax effect. It basically makes an element's background stay locked to the viewport instead of moving with the element's content while you scroll. When we finish our styles, it will make much more sense. Now we can define the images of our sections. So the first one is hero section. It will have the property background image, which has a URL, and here we can write /assets images hero background. And now the first image image is already set up. With just one image, we can already see the background attachment fixed working. And now we are going to apply the same style to the other sections. And now I'm going to apply the same style to the other sections. Alright, now we have our 4 images here. The first one is the hero, then we have the forest, then we have the horizons and the desert. After we added the images to our sections, we have to add this min height here to the forest, ocean and desert sections. By doing that, our sections will have a little less height, so it won't stretch just like the first one. Then we can define our parallax overlay class with a position absolute and a inset 0, which will automatically set to 0 the properties top, right, bottom and left. To finish this overlay, we have a background property with a gradient, linear in this case. The direction of the gradient will be to bottom and it will have 2 colors. RGBA 0000.3 is starting with 0%. This is basically a black with reduced opacity, and another black color which will be 0000.5 and 100%. Now we have this nice dark effect in the first image. After finishing the overlay, we can write our parallax content with a position relative, a z-index of 10, a text align center, a padding of 2 rem, and a max width of 50 rem. Then we can set the styles of our hero title with a font size clamp of 3 rem, 10 VW, and 6 rem. Talking a little bit about this clamp method, it's a simple but useful rule that tells the browser to make the text responsive based on the viewport width, while ensuring it never gets smaller than 3 rem on mobile devices or larger than 6 rem on desktop screens. Basically, the font size grows or shrinks automatically within this 3 rem to 6 rem range, eliminating the need for multiple media queries to handle different screen sizes. Next, we can define our font weight here, which will be 200. Our color will be a var parallax text, a letter spacing of 0.1 em, a margin bottom of 1.5 rem, and a text transform uppercase. Finishing our title, we can go to our heroes subtitle. It will also use the clamp method here, so clamp 1 rem, 2.5 VW, and 1.25 rem. The color of this one will be var parallax text with opacity of 0.9. You can already see the opacity working here. A font weight of 300, a letter spacing of 0.15 em, and a margin bottom of 4 rem. Now we are going to work in our scroll indicator. The first class is scroll indicator, and the styles are display flex, flex direction column, align items center, and a gap of 1 rem. After that, we have a scroll text with the properties font size 0.75 rem and a color parallax text. The opacity is 0.7, the letter spacing is 0.2 em, and the text transform is uppercase. Then we can define our scroll arrow here, which will have a width of 0.0625 rem and a height of 3.75 rem, a background gradient with the direction to bottom, and the colors are parallax text here, starting with 0%, and then we go to transparent with 100%. To finish this arrow, we have to add an animation here. So the animation property with the name scroll pulse, the duration is 2 seconds, it will be ease in out, and it is going to be infinite. Alright, we have defined our animation here in the scroll arrow class, but it is not working yet because we have to actually create the keyframe for our animation. So we can break the line and write here keyframes scroll pulse. We can define a 0%, then 100%. It will have a opacity of 0.3 and a transform scale Y of 1. Then for 50%, we have a opacity of 1 and a transform scale Y of 1.2. Now you can see the scroll pulse animation actually working. Great. After our scroll pulse keyframe, we have to define our parallax label so you can see our styles working in here, and the label has a display block style with a font size of 0.75 rem. The color will be parallax text. The opacity is 0.8. The letter spacing will be 0.3 em. It has a text transform uppercase and the margin bottom of 1 rem. After our label, we have a parallax title with a font size clamp of 2 rem, 6 VW, and 4 rem. The font weight here is 200, and it also has a color parallax text. To finish this class, we have a letter spacing of 0.05 em. Alright, it already looks great, but we have to style our content sections as well. So content section, it has a background color parallax cream and a padding of 6 rem for the top and bottom and 2 rem for the left and right. We can also style our content wrapper here. It will have a max width of 56.25 rem and a margin 0 and then auto. It will basically align the content in the center because of this auto. So if we remove this, you can actually see that the content is not centered anymore. But with this property, the content is centered. Alright, we can also define our section label here. It will have a display block, a font size 0.7 rem, a color parallax stone, a letter spacing of 0.3 em, a text transform uppercase, and the margin bottom of 1.5 rem. Then we can define our section title as well. It will have a font size clamp of 1.75 rem, 4 VW, and 2.5 rem. Our font weight is 300, and the color is parallax dark. To finish this, we can write the margin bottom, which is 2 rem, and the letter spacing is 0.02 em. Alright, we can also style our section text here. It contains a font size of 1.1 rem, a line height of 1.8, the color is parallax stone, and a margin bottom of 1.5 rem. It already looks really good, but we need to style this section text with the class centered. It will receive a text align center. Alright, I was looking for the result of this text align center, and I realized that it happens in here in the gallery. So if I uncomment this, you can see that the text is centered because of this property, so we can let this here. So the next class is features grid. It has a display grid with the property grid template columns, and the value is repeat. It will be auto fit, and it has a min max method with the params 17.5 rem and 1 fraction. This is the current result. We can also add a gap of 3 rem and a margin top of 4 rem. Alright, we also need to style our feature card. It has a padding of 2 rem and 0, so 2 rem for the top and bottom and 0 to the left and right. Our feature icon in here, it has a font size of 0.875 rem. The color is parallax sage. The font weight is 300. Margin bottom is 1.5 rem, and the letter spacing is 0.1 em. After this icon, we should style our feature title, which contains a font size of 1.25 rem, a font weight of 400, a color parallax dark, the margin bottom is 1 rem, and a letter spacing of 0.02 em. The last class for the feature section is feature text, which has a font size of 0.95 rem, the line height is 1.7, and the color is parallax stone. Alright, so we finished styling our feature section. The next one is the gallery, so we can write here gallery grid. It has a display grid, of course, a grid template columns repeat 2, and the second param is 1 fraction with a gap of 1.5 rem and a margin top of 3 rem. After this, we are going to style our gallery item. It has a aspect ratio of 4/3, a background size cover, a background position of center, a filter grayscale of 20%, and a transition for this filter with a duration of 0.5 seconds ease. Now we can add a hover effect here, so gallery item hover, and we will change the grayscale to 0%. This will give a nice style when we hover over our images. To actually see this filter working, we have to add our images gallery item 1, gallery item 2 and 3 and 4. Now we basically need to define the background image of our gallery items. Alright, with the 4 images here in the gallery items, look at the result. We already have these sections well styled, and in the gallery we have these 4 elements here. If you hover over one of them, you can see the grayscale reducing and then decreasing when you remove the mouse over the image. First image, second one, third one, and fourth one. We are almost done, so we need to style our footer now. It has a background color Parallax dark, a padding of 3 rem and 2 rem, so 3 for the top and bottom and 2 rem for the left and right, and a border top of 0.0625 rem. The style is solid and the color is RGBA 139, 139 again, 122, and the opacity is 0.2. Alright, so this is what we've got so far with the styles. Then we can style our footer content. It has a max width of 5625 rem. The margin is 0 auto, so we can center the elements in the center, and a text align center. Now we can style our footer text. It has a font size of 0.875 rem. The color is Parallax stone, a letter spacing of 0.1 em, and a margin bottom of 0.5 rem. The last class here is footer copyright with the styles font size 0.75 rem, color is RGBA 139, 139, 122, and opacity 0.6. And this is our footer. Before we finish our CSS, we need to add our media queries to adjust one element or another so it can actually look really great in most devices. The media query is simple. We have a media max width of 48 rem, and in here we have 4 classes. The first one is Parallax section. It has a background attachment scroll, a content section with a padding of 4 rem to the top and bottom and 1.5 rem to the left and right, a gallery grid with grid template columns 1 fraction and a gap of 1 rem, and the last class is features grid with a gap of 2 rem. The reason why we use this background attachment scroll for smaller devices is because the Parallax feature is not available in many mobile devices, so by default we say that the background attachment is a scroll for smaller devices. In this case, devices with the max width of 768 pixels. If you want, you can remove this class here in this media query and try the effect by yourself, but I recommend letting this class here. The reason why I'm using rem here and em for different properties is because I use rem for layout structure, spacing, component sizing, and breakpoints, because it keeps proportions aligned with the root font size and it improves accessibility. On the other hand, I use em only for typographic adjustments like letter spacing when I want values to follow each element's own text size, and I use percentages or viewport units when I want fluid behavior across different screen sizes. So instead of choosing units randomly, each unit has a specific role that makes the CSS more predictable and easier to maintain as the project grows. And this is the result of our Parallax website. Alright, and this is the parallax effect. So once you understand how this works, you can start combining it with other techniques to create much more dynamic and engaging interfaces. If you enjoyed this project, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss future videos like this. And if you want to see how this fits into a real project, check out my space-themed landing page video where we build a full modern UI from scratch. You can even take this parallax effect and apply it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.